Sometimes after you finish a series, you just want to reread it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and today the subject is rereads. But before we get into the subject of rereads, please do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow. You can check the description box down below for links to the Patreon and the Discord. And with that out of the way, guys, let's talk about the books on this list. And essentially, I don't do rereads often. And when I do, it's a big deal for me because I have so much to read. 45% of this is unread. If you see it behind me, chances are I've only read a little over half of it, which is how basic math works. I don't know why I'm explaining that. Anyway, I don't get to do rereads very often, and these are all the series that are completed, that I finished, and I constantly think about doing rereads for them. Some of them I've even purchased to do rereads, like the one that is on top, and that is The Golden Compass. This is my Folio Society edition. I read this when I was, I'm going to say 12 years old. I read the whole trilogy. I tracked it down through the library system. I remember having difficulty getting a hold of the Amber Spyglass. And now I've got the follow-up 2 books to this one. They did a follow-up trilogy years after it was complete. And I want to know what that's about, but I don't remember enough about this particular series. And so I need to do a reread. And that's why this makes the list. Hey, I love this edition. Just fantastic. I know this is for a younger audience, and yet I still think I'm going to love it just as much as I did when I was 12 years old. In my mind, it still kind of holds up. So that's the first entry on this list. And then, of course, if you see what's on top here, of course, we're going to do Faithful and the Fallen by John Quinn. And this is still one of my favorite series that I have read since joining BookTube. The biggest regret in my collection is that I was not allowed to buy the broken binding hardcover editions of these. If you have them in your collection and you don't want them, feel free. This is 100% legit. Feel free to reach out to me and we'll see if we can make something happen, because I would love to have these in a hardcover signed edition. That out of the way, Faithful and the Fallen, it's Norse inspired. And normally I don't like Norse inspired, but I make an exception for John Quinn's Faithful and the Fallen. When you get taken on such an action-packed adventure, this is the definition of a page turner. Literally, the chapters are just short enough and the rotating POVs are done masterfully. It's literally just one more chapter. The chapters are super short. Just one more chapter. Just one more chapter. And then you get to books 2, and then book 3, and book 4, and then by the end, you're just gutted and you're in love, and it's amazing. These books will always be incredibly special to me as a reader, which is why I want to get those special editions. But even if I can't get a hold of them, I can still have it on my shelf because, this series is fantastic. If you haven't picked this up yet and you haven't listened to the tons of booktubers who suggest this series, you're doing yourself a disservice. I definitely want to do a reread here soon of The Faithful and the Fallen. Then we have got Sinen Asend by Josiah Bancroft. And the main reason that I would love to do a reread of this is, first book is amazing. If you like it, you're going to like it. If you don't, just don't read the series. But, you got Arm of the Sphinx, and then you got the Hod King, and then you got the Fall of Babel. And I don't know if I was, harsh on the Fall of Babel. I would love to reread this series back to back to back, just to kind of get a new take on that last book and see if my feelings change or are the same, because the first 3 books of this series I found magical and compelling and enthralling, and I felt that same way about 70% of the Fall of Babel as well. And then I just didn't jive with the end of it, and I would like to re-experience the story again to see if I still feel the same way. And that's kind of the same with this one as well, because frankly, I'm going to say the first 80% of the entire series. No, we're going to go further. We're going to say the first 95%. Heck, 95%. I don't know why I keep saying first. 95% of The Mother of Learning by Dumagoy Kermayich is mind-blowingly good. And then the end just kind of happens, and I don't know how I feel about the end. But man, the ride that you get taken on and the clever use of just time loops and repetition being the mother of learning, it's just brilliant and it's beautiful. And Zorian is just such a great protagonist. You get to watch him grow and you get to see his mindset slowly change. And it's so beautiful and awesome and entertaining that I just want to experience this one again. Like, honestly, like, I feel like I'm talking myself into just, screw that last 5%. I just want to reread this. Like, it's that incredibly good. And then, of course, we've got Hard Magic. This is one I don't talk about on the channel often. I have talked about it before. This is by Larry Correia. Everybody likes to talk about his saga of Forgotten Warrior, I believe it's called. I've read the first 3 books on that, and it's okay. But this is a completed trilogy, and this is slept on. This is slept on, in my opinion, here on BookTube, because this is like noir 1930s alternate universe. We've got people with powers. We're like kind of like the US or the West and the East are at war. There's like interdimensional stuff going on. This one's just darn cool. And I would love, I mean, I read this pre-BookTube. It's been years. It's been like 5 or 6 years since I read this. And I'm due a reread because it's fantastic. And I loved experiencing this for the first time. And I think I'd love experiencing it for the second time as well. And then just throwing in the token Wheel of Time, because I'll never get tired of rereading the Wheel of Time. My last time I reread the Wheel of Time, I got all the way to Crosswords of Twilight. And if you know Crosswords of Twilight, it's the worst book in the series. And I was just like, I need to take a break. It's also my first time reading the book on audio. And I think it's an eyes only kind of series for me. And I would like to come back and do an eyes only read. Or maybe as the actress who plays Moraine, Rosamund Pike, that's her name, I think, kind of re-narrates the audiobooks. Maybe I'll get those editions and see if I enjoy those, just because Michael Kramer and Kate Redding can be kind of hit or miss for me. Specifically Kate Redding. Like, Michael Kramer's fine. For some reason, whenever Kate Redding is narrating, it's not quite for me. So, yeah, maybe I'll try the Rosamund Pike audiobooks as those progress, because I think they're up to book 4 now. And we'll see what happens. But I would love to do an eyes only reread, because it's been years since I've done one. We got 4 more. We've got Mike Shell's Iconoclast. I've already read this book twice. I literally finished the trilogy and then restarted the trilogy immediately. And this one just had a Kickstarter, which is going to be stunning, and it's going to look fantastic on my shelf, because you know I backed it. This is one of those, like, kind of when I was first like discovering SPFBO, I was looking at previous finalists. I think this was a finalist or a semi-finalist in one of the early years of SPFBO, but I kind of just stumbled into it on my own and started reading it, and I was like, why is nobody talking about Mike Shell's Aching God? Because it's amazing. It's a blend of like archaeology, adventure, fantasy, with just great aspects of horror, which, as I've become more of a horror reader recently, I've been buying a ton of horror books. This just appeals to me more and more and more. And I think it was an early indicator that, like, maybe I do like horror books. So yeah, Aching God by Mike Shell. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I've like interviewed the author here on the channel. I'll link that in the description box down below. Like, I mean, he's amazing. Next up, we've got Will White's Unsold. This is Cradle. You already know I love Cradle. I'll always love Cradle. It's big, it's bombastic, it's cultivation, it's progression fantasy, it's quick reads, it's great characterization, it's funny, it's got bloopers, it's so good, and it's narrated by Travis Baldree if you're doing the audiobooks. I mean, this is just an absolute no-brainer to be on this list. It's fantastic. And then an urban fantasy that knew when to quit. Yeah, I know I just took a shot across the bow at Dresden. Recently, like, I've got an upcoming video where I want to talk about series limits, but this is Benedict Jocka's Vera series, and it ended at 12 books, and I think that was just long enough for the series. It ended on a high note, whether you like the ending or not. I thought Benedict Jocka pulled it off brilliantly, and if you haven't checked out Alex Verus yet, even just ignore my shot across the bow at Dresden. Do yourself a favor and check this one out, because it's so incredibly good. He's a magician or a mage with seer powers, and they do really interesting things with that throughout the series. There's great politics in here. It's a more narrowed down urban fantasy where we're not throwing in the Fae, we're not throwing in Santa Claus, we're not throwing in werewolves. we're just doing like light mages against dark mages, basically. That's kind of what this is. And I think it's done really well. Really, really well. And then I'm always going to talk about superpowers. I have read through this series at least twice, and I would love to do a third one because it's simply fantastic. It's great coming of age, great progression, great school setting. It reminded me of like Hero Academia, although My Hero Academia, although I think this came out before My Hero Academia. It's very similar. So if you need like a My Hero Academia itch and you want superheroes in literary like form, this is the series for you. This is Superpowers Volume 1 by Drew Hayes, with a side novel of Corpy's as well. It's just so incredibly good. Like, this made me fall in love with Drew Hayes, and I've since read over 20 novels from this author. Just fantastic. I can't sing his praises enough. And I've interviewed the author as well. Link in the description box down below if you want to see. Content warning, it gets a bit sweary. That's my list for you guys. This is all I've really got for you. These are the series that I would just love to do rereads on. Let me know in the comments down below what series are just so bingeable and rereadable to you. I would love to know some great series that are great for reread. That's all I really got for you today, guys. So until next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby. It means the world to me.